Good afternoon, everyone. It's thrilling for me to be in conversation today with a dear friend and a real mentor in the media business. After I left Facebook, I decided to start my own media company, Zuckerberg Media. And of course, naturally, who do you think the first person I would turn to? The person who made the social network. Most people, I think, when they have their home family videos are stored in a camcorder in your garage, but our family video won a Golden Globe, so thank you for that.
You're welcome, anytime.
But really, for anyone who has a Netflix account in this audience, this is a man who needs no introduction, such an illustrious body of work. So Dana, thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you, thank you.
So I'd love to just kick off by starting, what was your personal journey into media, and how did you get started?
So I started 15 years ago as Kevin Spacey's assistant, and basically was just a coffee fetcher and getting dry cleaning and everything that a personal assistant does, and ultimately became his executive assistant and was a sponge and just absorbed information and learned by doing, and that's ultimately how I ended up becoming a producer.
That's great. And what was kind of your real first project that you did?
I did a small documentary for HBO called Uncle Frank. And it was a documentary that had been partially shot. It wasn't finished. They needed some help, both in finishing funds and then also just some guidance in putting the film together and getting it into a distributor and getting it released.
So I want to talk about Netflix for a second, because obviously, I mean, you guys made such a splash with Netflix. What was the industry's reaction when you first told them, hey, I'm making this whole series on Netflix? Did people think you were crazy?
Yeah, a lot of people thought we were nuts, and they didn't understand what we were doing. Some of the people even involved didn't know what we were doing. But they were basically like, you have Kevin Spacey and David Fincher, and you're doing a show for the internet. And a lot of people didn't understand where it was going, and I mean, everybody gets it now. The same people that thought I was crazy, they come and sit in my office now and say, how do I get my show on Netflix?
That's right, they beg you for introductions.
Yeah, but I'm not the gateway to Netflix. But yeah, it was, even Kevin, when we got a call on a Saturday from Fincher, he went out to get coffee, and Fincher called him, and Kevin got back from getting coffee and was like, Fincher just called, he needs to speak to both of us. And when you get a call on Saturday, when you think you're going to announce to another network on Monday, you think, oh hell, what went wrong? And you think for the worst. And we got on the phone. I was on one phone in the room, and he was on a phone on the other side of the room. And he lived in London, and so he still thought it was DVDs. And it really, at the time, it kind of was, because it was like 3 years ago when we did this deal. And but the streaming service was just starting to kick up, and there was the whole Quickster debacle and all of that, and so people weren't really too keen on Netflix streaming. Oh. And but when I heard that we had this opportunity to go there and they were going to buy 2 seasons, Kevin was kind of like, well, I don't understand. We're going to do our show. We're going to release our show on DVD. And I, across the room, put the phone down, and I went, we are doing this show. I'll explain it to you afterwards. Just say yes. And so, to his credit, he put his faith in me and said, okay, Dana's saying do it, let's do it. And this was, I've always been pushing for digital distribution this way. And I basically explained to him afterwards, look, if it doesn't happen now, it's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. We have the opportunity to accelerate that and make it a common thing now, like it is to everybody. Or we could have been the biggest bomb heard around the world if it didn't work. But he was willing to take the risk, and we took the risk, and it really worked.
Did you feel like in that moment before you accepted it or announced it, you were like, this is either going to change the history of content, or just we're going to never talk about this moment again?
Well, of course you wouldn't talk about it if it didn't work. But I knew it was going to be a game changer, because just for the type of talent that was involved and the caliber of show that it was, that no matter what, the headlines alone would be a game changer.
Now let's talk about the decision to release the entire season all at once, because again, that was something very new when you guys did that. Thanks for ruining everyone's Valentine's Day this year.
Or making it.
Or making everyone's Valentine's Day this year, yes. So that was a really innovative way to launch a series. What went behind that decision, and do you think more and more shows are going to start launching that way?
I wish they would all launch that way. I think eventually they will. It's going to take a while, but the thinking behind that was more Netflix. I can't really take any credit on the creative side. They asked us what we thought about it, and I thought it was a great idea. But Netflix was very hands-off through the entire first season and second season from the creative side. They basically were like, you guys do what you do best, and we'll do what we do best. And it was the perfect marriage of creative and technology, and basically really getting it out there and making. We wouldn't have been able to make the show the way we made it. I mean, in season 1, when Kevin kills the dog, that probably would have never gotten through on another network. And that was us coming out the gate and saying, this is going to be a different type of show.
Yeah. Now, I recently was introduced to a term called stream cheating recently.
What is it?
Whereas when your significant other cheats on you and goes ahead of the stream in front of you. Which, you know, so that you started a real phenomenon with this. I have to admit, even in leaving here, I told my husband that he was not allowed to catch up and watch the episodes without me. So,
but it's also, it's not just Netflix. It's, you know, if you DVR Game of Thrones or anything, you know, and they start building up if you're traveling or whatever. Particularly, I'm on the road all the time, so my DVR is full, and so I binge not just on Netflix. I binge on pretty much every show that I like and that I enjoy. Actually, my girlfriend, when I was watching the early cuts of it, she hadn't watched season 1. So I'm like, well, I've got to watch this. So you need to watch season 1 to catch up. You know, so she literally had to watch all of season 1 so I could do my job and watch the early cuts. Otherwise, it would have ruined it for her.
Now, I guess, you know, let's clear the air for a second. You worked on The Social Network. Let's just get it out there.
Awesome movie, 100% accurate.
Totally factual in every way. Now, tell me about, I mean, it's interesting because you gravitate towards projects, I mean, in a very smart way of things that have already shown some traction. Mm-hmm. Facebook was showing some traction, and the book 50 Shades of Grey showed some traction. So
just a little.
Just a little traction. So I'm curious about your thought on kind of how you pick your projects, how they come to you, and and just what you look for in something that's already built a brand.
Well, the first thing that I look for is just is it a movie that I'd want to see, and then I go to the logistics of it. Will I be able to put it together and get it to the screen, because it's a very difficult process. So either attaching talent, a writer, an actor, director, but I pay attention a lot to social media. I'll pay attention to what people are talking about on Facebook or on Twitter, and because I tend to gravitate towards a lot of real world events or true stories. And
no comment.
I'm just going to knock you. But it's a really good barometer for me to find out if there's something that is got people's attention. Like Captain Phillips, for example, which I did as well. That as that was playing out on the news, I was watching it, seeing if there was a story there, but also paying attention to it on social media, and that was a big factor in pushing me that way.
Now, you are a very involved producer. I always see, by the way, for anyone here who does not follow this man on Facebook or Twitter, you must immediately, it is the most entertaining feed that I think I've seen.
Not always PC.
Not always PC, but a really fantastic inside look into what it actually really is like filming. And now you're always on planes, you're on the set, you're in there making the casting decisions and everything. Can you give us just a little producer 101 for a second? Is every producer that involved, and how does that work if you're juggling multiple projects?
Every producer works differently, and it's also case by case depending on the project. Some projects you have to be there, hands-on, boots on the ground. Some, like House of Cards, I use a system called Pix, So I get all the dailies, and all the information comes to me on a computer that's connected to my television. So I can sit and watch from my desk at my office in LA everything that's being shot in Baltimore the very next day. And just a few years ago, that wasn't even an option, where you had to wait days for it to be processed and then sent to you, either DVD or go to a screening room. But it really is case by case of how involved you actually need to be or want to be or have to be. And also there's quite a number of other producers on some projects, so some of them can handle things. I might take the front seat and run with it in different aspects. So like Social Network, as an example, once we had gotten all the information for that, Aaron went and wrote the screenplay. Scott Rudin was very involved in that aspect of it. I was more involved on the production side of things and getting the casting and the production set up and going. And then once filming started, David Fincher, his crew is like a fine oiled machine, and so there's really nothing for us as a producer to do on set. And then in through the post, and then once we went into the marketing of it, Scott Rudin's a genius at that. And so Mike DeLuca and I, the other producer, would just kind of sit back on that aspect of it. But yeah, it's all a case-by-case basis.
Let's talk about Kickstarter. Now, there's a lot of buzz over the past few years around crowdfunding movies, how now anyone can be a producer. Now, in some respects, it's a beautiful thing. When you look at Sundance and you look at the fact that over 30% of the films that are at Sundance have been crowdfunded in some way, and you look at just a lot of the stats, it's really democratizing the industry. On the other hand, you're also starting to hear a lot about crowdfunding fatigue, and hearing more and more stories about, are these films actually getting made? What's happening? I'd love to hear your thoughts as kind of someone in the establishment part of the industry, and your thoughts on crowdfunding.
I'm now the man.
The man.
No, I think it's a genius idea that's just gotten a little out of hand. I think if you're making a short film or a small independent film that has a smaller reasonable budget to take from a crowd, 100,000 and under maybe. But I think it's wrong when people like Zach Braff or Spike Lee utilize that same service to fund their films when they already have access. I think that then overshadows and takes away from the little guys that actually need the funding. But personally, I think for films, I don't really approve of it, unless again it's like a short film or a small thing, because films they're a horrible business. There's a lot of other great things that are on Kickstarter that are revolutionary as far as like technology or gadgets or things that people have great ideas that they're getting made that benefit the world or benefit humankind, where a film is, I guess the same thing could be said about that, but they're just bad business.
Although I wonder,
and I'm a producer saying that. Don't ever invest in a film.
Are we tweeting like Dana up here on stage saying films are bad
that's the quote
business?
tomorrow. Don't ever invest in a film.
Although I do feel like most people who go on these crowdfunding sites, they're doing it more to be a patron of the arts.
Yeah. No, look,
so
I completely. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to back you, and I believe in what you're doing, and throwing $10 here or there because you believe in somebody, totally. But when they start selling executive producer credits and co-producer credits and walk-on roles, and that takes completely away from the artistic integrity immediately. So anybody that's saying that they're just trying to do their thing or that it's helping the artist, they're just undermining themselves by if somebody is paying $10,000 for a walk-on role in your movie, that doesn't mean they're an actor or anything. It's like that's somebody that needs to be cast, and there's a whole process that goes through that. Somebody that's an executive producer, they're not, just because they gave you money, they become an executive producer, a co-producer, producer, all these crazy credits they give out. And that's going to lead to a whole other thing too with guilds and issues with that as far as SAG and the other guilds are concerned, because if the people are a member of the guilds and they're in a guild production, that's a whole nother bag of worms. And then if they start making money, that's a whole nother can of worms that's going to open up, because then there's legal issues as far as it being an investment and whether or not there is any return on that investment.
So if someone 10 years from now walked up to you and said, I'm an executive producer, what do you think that means 10 years from now?
Probably about the same thing it means now. Anybody can be an executive producer. I mean, that's like the worst thing in LA when people ask me, you know, what do you do? And I'm kind of like, I'm a producer. But I actually produce. Because everybody in LA is either actor, or writer, producer, or director.
Could range from anything from like unemployed to actually making a
Oh, yeah. But it's
films.
also, too, you know, look, the name of the panel are we all producers now, and actually we are, because everybody's sitting with a smartphone, and you have the ability to shoot a film and edit it right on your phone. And if you have talent, there's a market out there, and there's an audience and a platform, multiple platforms to get it, where you can tweet it to your audience, and you can have a ton of people see it. Where, you know, a few years ago you didn't have that ability. So it's a fantastic time for content creators. If you're looking to get an audience.
So to your point about kind of selling walk-on roles and things like that, I mean, crowdfunding is a great opportunity for a lot of content creators out there. So how do you do it in a way that you don't give up the creative control by allowing too many cooks in the kitchen? Do you think there is a way to successfully crowdfund a film?
Don't sell credits, don't sell walk-on roles, just put it up straight, here's my film, do your pitch. And if people want to back you, then they'll back you. But if you have to entice them with walk-on roles and crazy credits and things like that, then you're undermining yourself.
What about live content? It's something that I'm really interested right now. I know that mostly a lot of what you deal with is scripted, but I think in this age of social media, live is really having a resurgence because now you can almost have that feeling like you're watching something in your living room with several million people all at the same time. In a way, I think with the release of an entire season of House of Cards at one time, you almost created a live event out of scripted content.
Yeah, it was sort of that way, but the problem is it's spoilers, so people can't really talk too much about it. But I think live is going to it's going to find its niche. I think theater is a place where it's really going to start to take off, because the problem that theater Broadway has is geography. So we're in Austin, Texas. If you want to see you in Rock of Ages in 2 weeks or whenever it is, you have to fly to New York to do it. If they start getting it equipped more to do live streaming, then geography gets removed.
That's right. It is actually an interesting thing because theater is kind of one of the only remaining areas of content where you need to physically go to one location, buy an expensive ticket, and that's your only way to engage with it.
It's already done. It's already done with concerts. It's just not Broadway's the only one that hasn't
That's
done
right.
it.
So I wonder, what technologies are you seeing now? What apps and sites are most interesting that are catching your eye that you think could kind of help democratize even theater content a bit more, or just sites in the media business that are really catching your eye?
There's actually one I'm an advisor for. It's called Stage It, that allows musicians to interact with their audience almost immediately and just impromptu concerts or shows right from their living room. They can go on and tweet out to their hundreds of thousands of fans and say, hey, I'm going to be on my couch at 5:30, playing a song, you got requests or whatever, and they can actually interact and engage with their fans basically from anywhere in the world. So I think things like that are going to really start to catch on and be huge. I don't know, what was the rest of that question?
Yeah, gosh, no, I mean, we're just talking about kind of interesting apps and sites that are catching your eye, especially for people.
I'm going to pimp the ones that I'm involved with. There's a company that I'm an investor in called Dissipate, that we have a new service called File, F-Y-L-E, that all these things come from problems and issues that I have, and these are solutions to them. And it's if your grandmother wants to send you more than 25 megabytes of photos, rather than setting up a YouSendIt or WeTransfer account, it's basically drops it in, gives them a link, to email the link, and then it disappears once it's downloaded. Ultimately, where we're going to take that is for secure document transfer, because when, like 50 Shades of Grey, we couldn't have that script get out. Right. And so we have to use all this crazy proprietary software. I'm developing with these guys this app that any documents that once they're sent, you can set how many times they can be viewed or time limit, or you can just pull the plug on it any time and it dissipates, it's gone.
Really interesting, even especially if you're sending music and other tracks like that too.
Any type of file, yeah.
It's really...
It's basically, it's like Snapchat for files, large files.
Huh. Very cool. Now, we live in a world where your audience now has their own audience, which is a very interesting world when you're producing content, because not only do you have to think, gosh, is my audience going to like what I'm making? But you also have to worry about what then they're turning around and saying to their hundreds of thousands of fans. And even in that vein, 50 Shades of Grey started as fan fiction. So it was an audience member's response to Twilight that then got a whole audience and life of its own. So how do you deal with that as a producer when your audience now is famous and is celebrities in their own right?
Well, as a producer, you pay attention to it, and you basically listen to what the fans are saying and what they're doing, both from a content creation side of what they're making and creating, but also what they want and what they expect, so that you can create and make for them. And look, they can make or break a film. It's a whole new world that we live between Twitter and Facebook. People go out, and the early word of mouth that goes across Twitter and Facebook for a film can destroy it immediately. Or it can take something that you've never heard of and make it a huge hit.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting world, and you deal with both the very vocal, passionate lovers and the haters. I'm very curious. I think you deal with the haters online in a really hysterical way. What's your philosophy?
I don't know. How do I deal with them?
I think you just kind of call them out. You retweet a lot of them.
Yeah, some of them. I like retweeting some of the haters sometimes because it's just funny. But yeah, I mean, everybody's always going to have haters. I think it comes with the job. But yeah, you have to have a tough skin and just kind of let it roll off your back and not let it affect you. But either that's the block thing comes in handy, or just retweet them and just have fun with them.
Do you read all your own press?
Sometimes. I mean, there's like Google Alerts is great, and I have another alert service, and it just gets to be too much sometimes, particularly when you're doing a lot of things. But when things are dying down and Google Alert goes off, boom, right there, you go right to it to see what it was, because what made that pop up. But yeah, I read quite a bit of it.
What do you think? What's your advice to kind of first-time producers and people putting content out there? Should they be reading their own press or no? Yeah,
because I mean, if you can't take what somebody is saying online to you, and you want to be in this business, then you're not going to be able to take what a live audience says, or what a studio executive across a table from you says, or what a director says to you about, if you're an actor, or what, a producer says to you if you're a writer, or, there's somebody for everybody that is going to give you criticism and come at you pretty hard, and it's a business full of crazy egos, and a lot of assholes, frankly. And so if you can't take what the assholes online are saying to you, then it's probably not the business to be in.
I want to talk about ratings for a bit. Now,
what kind of ratings?
Television ratings.
Oh,
now, I got kind of a crash course in television production when I worked on a show for Bravo last year, and I quickly learned that, there's a couple of people with pens and papers and Nielsen boxes across the country basically control if your show makes it on air for another year or not. And if someone has a cold and is not watching their TV that night, you're dead.
It takes like
500,000 viewers are done. You're done. So I'm really interested in a world where now you're releasing content online through Netflix. You guys deliberately chose not to reveal ratings for House of Cards.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I'd love your thoughts on just how...
It wasn't my decision, it was Netflix's decision, but look, they don't have sponsors or anybody, and actually there's others like HBO and Showtime that don't have sponsors, and I don't think they really need to release their numbers either, but it's a very competitive nature of the business, and so everybody always wants to know where you rank and where you are. And Netflix just early on decided that we don't have to play that game, and fortunately for some of the networks, they didn't play that game. Even though the networks were demanding that they release their numbers, they would have crushed all the network numbers. So I think they did the networks a favor. But Nielsen's, I think, is antiquated, and it's particularly in the day and age that we live in. There's, like Netflix, they know exactly who's watching, what you're watching, when you're pausing, when you're starting, what time of day you're watching. You know, they know everything. And there's quite a few others out and other ways to get very accurate ratings that Nelson's either needs to update or go away.
I think the other thing that's quite interesting too is, especially with Netflix, it can show you, oh, you like House of Cards, here's 5 other things with Kevin Spacey, or was this what you liked about House of Cards? They can now use big data in a really interesting way to exactly show you the content that's relevant to you.
Yeah, the Netflix algorithms are, you know, they're very good, and they have big data. I mean, that's big data, and they use it very well. I mean, that was part of what pushed them to buy 2 seasons of our show off of just a pilot script, which is unheard of. But what basically they were able to put in the people that were involved and how movies I produced, or David Fincher's movies, or Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright, really. Well, actually, it was just Kevin at the time. We hadn't cast Robin yet. And then a political drama, and they could kind of see how it would fit in with their audience. And so they were able to make a very educated guess on it being a good show for them, and why they made the bet that they made.
Now, this is an industry that's very guarded in secrecy. You're putting out a movie, you want as little to be released as possible, yet we also now all live in a world where every movement is documented by selfies and tweets and Snapchats. So going into a film now, how do you brief your crew and your actors on kind of a social media policy? I imagine even any of us working at any company deal with this in a lot of ways, because suddenly every employee in your company becomes a de facto spokesperson for your brand. Now you're on a set, you're on House of Cards, 50 Shades of Grey, every person involved in that movie is kind of fancies themselves a spokesperson for the movie. How do you deal with that?
Well, the studios now have social media clauses in the contracts. So when you sign on, you basically are agreeing that you're not going to post anything or take photos or write anything about the show that you're working on. And that pretty much nips it in the bud, 'cause we pay pretty close attention to anything that gets out, and then there's a digital trail. So it can easily be traced back, even if it's a pseudonym or whatever. You can pay attention to that and find out where it's coming from. And generally, the crews that I've worked with are really good. I'm probably the worst. So I'm not leading by example, because I post a lot of things I probably shouldn't. But generally, the crews are pretty good, and it's become a known part of the business that it's just not tolerated.
Do you think that's realistic, though, telling people don't tweet, don't do that? Or do you think that's sort of like the studios, you know, shouting to the train that's already left the station when everyone's already going to do it? Is there a way to channel it positively?
Yeah, no, it did leave the station for a while, but I think the studios have been good at wrangling it back and then letting the valve off as they need to. It depends on the project too. Like something like 50 Shades, that was tightly under wraps. As much as we tried to keep it under wraps, a lot of, you know, still, I mean, I can't say anything about it without being a headline, which I think is a testament to how covered we kept it. But yeah, I mean, social media can be the best thing for a project, and it can also be the worst thing if the wrong thing gets out, or, you know, if a magazine has an exclusive on the cover of a character or something, and it gets out on social media, that can ruin a lot of things that are in play that people don't even think about or realize that it's actually affecting.
But yet, audiences are demanding more and more behind-the-scenes content. They want it, they expect it, they want to see it. How do you balance kind of giving these sneak peeks into productions without kind of giving away the whole ship?
I mean, it's like, again, with 50, we didn't give that much. We, you know, EL posted pictures of people's feet, and that the fans, they loved it. And we posted a picture of the slate when we first started. And we basically did photos that we coordinated that we would post, or, you know, we would approve before we post, we posted them, so that knowing that it wouldn't give anything away. But it was still enough of a tease to give a hint that we're in production, this is what we're doing, we're working on it. But as far as the production itself, we didn't post anything. And we will do that, you know, when the time is right.
Is there any really cool technology or anything you used behind the scenes on House of Cards that people here would be just intrigued or wouldn't know? No, I mean, a lot of it we did kind of old school. One of the funnier things that was that
some independent filmmakers might enjoy is when we were shooting the scenes in DC on season 1, no one really knew about House of Cards, obviously, because it hadn't been released. And so we were going around DC shooting, just basically like a skeleton crew. And park police or whatever would come up to us and ask us what we were doing. And Fincher had come up with the idea to say that we were shooting a documentary on marble.
Marble?
And they'd walk, all right,
like
you guys have fun.
Leave.
There couldn't be any more bored, and they would walk right away.
That's not something they want to stick around and watch.
Season 2, not as easy.
Did you guys attract big audiences when you're filming?
Yeah, well then everybody knew, the gig was up by then.
Now, I think it's interesting. Usually a lot of producers are kind of behind the scenes. You don't really know, who the producers are. But more and more in this age, again, where we all have to think of ourselves as celebrities a little bit, we all have to do our own marketing. I think you've done a really great job of creating a personal brand for yourself. And do you think that that's important for producers to do? And was it a conscious thought?
Well, it wasn't conscious, but once I started to see it taken off, I definitely thought it was important and still think it is. And it's important to engage people that follow you or that they like your work. And because a lot of them are like-minded. And so you actually get a lot of good ideas or a lot of input from those followers or Facebook friends or followers. But it's also good when I go out to get content, if I'm chasing a piece of material, if they know who I am, as opposed to just some obscure producer, which there's a lot of very successful obscure producers, but it just gives me that one little leg up, and every bit counts when you're going after a hot property.
Have you ever had like the fight to get 50 Shades or any of these movies? Was it interesting?
I mean, every project's a fight if it's a good project. If you're the only one circling it, then there's probably a reason for that. But yeah, no, every project you're always having to push somebody out. Somebody loses and somebody wins.
Now, there's a new kind of celebrity. There's the kind of the traditional movie star, film celebrity, but now when you look at kind of the future of content, you now have people who've built up massive niche followings online. As a producer, is that something you take into consideration when you're casting? Do you think if you're on the fence between two people, are you thinking at all about their social media following and the audience they bring?
Definitely. Let me just be clear about this. Somebody like Tila Tequila, whatever her name was, and all of her followers, I don't care about that because that's not talent to me. Kim Kardashian and all that.
Good MySpace reference.
Yeah, I don't care about that type, but that's not talent to me. But if there's somebody that we're
okay, appreciate a round of applause.
But if there's real actors that we're considering for a role, we do look at their social media, at least I do, and I think the industry is starting to pay more attention to that, because when it comes time to do that push and to get attention for the project, you want them to help you. And that's actually in some people's contracts now, that they do tweets and they do Facebook posts, and to push it, just like they have to do press when go on the morning talk shows and the late night talk shows, that there's also social media that they have to do. And if they have a lot of followers, that definitely goes into account.
Especially when I was at Facebook, I started seeing even movie trailers released for the first time through social media instead of through traditional channels, which is interesting. Is that something that you've done with any of your projects?
I think the majority of them now are released online first. I think the Social Network trailer, the first one that we released, I think was done online first, and then we pushed it out.
It would have been a little ironic if it wasn't.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but it's great though, because then if they're a good trailer, they go viral really fast, and that's much better than a television commercial could ever do. And then people, they like it, they can go back and watch it and go back and watch it. And the trailers online that's a big business now.
Now you have mobile, you have second screen. That's obviously something everyone talks about with content now, is how do you really engage the second screen in the experience. What are some of the interesting trends that you're seeing in kind of mobile watching of content or kind of mobile interaction?
Well, I mean, I think it's early days to see where it's going to go, but it's ultimately going to be a part of the viewing experience in the future. It's figuring out how it's going to, as it being a second screen. So if you're, one that hasn't been done yet, at least I don't think it's been done, HBO needs to get on this, is for Game of Thrones. So when a character is up, give me the whole backstory on that character so I can figure it all out of, now what, she's sleeping with her brother and what, and you know.
I need to go on Wikipedia before I watch any episode of that show and just to have a refresher.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's got to be done in a way, so at home I think the second screen really works. I think if it's in a movie theater or something, you know, it's just going to be a distraction and be a problem. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few years. I think the bigger, as far as mobile is concerned, is like what Netflix is doing and others are starting to do, giving it to you on all your devices. So you can watch it on your television, watch it on your computer, and watch it on your iPhone, your iPad, your whatever device that has a screen, you can watch it on that. The next thing that I think will happen with that is giving you the ability so you don't have to stream it, that you can stream the download and buffer it and then have it for a limited period of time.
That's great. Now I just have a few more questions and then I want to open it up to questions from the crowd, so get your questions ready. When in House of Cards, I actually read a really interesting article about how you portray text messages on screen, because that's not an easy thing. When you're dealing with a show where so much of the dialogue is not actually spoken, it's happening through text, things can really get lost. So how did you come to that decision? It
wasn't my idea. I saw it in the first cut of the first episode, and I was like, that's brilliant. And you know, typically you do the over-the-shoulder shot onto a screen, and you got to hope that you hold on it long enough. And then I don't know who the genius idea came up with that, but I think you're going to start to see it more and more, and other cooler ideas as well, because it's such a commonplace now in storytelling, because there's so much text messaging and email that goes on that is being incorporated into storytelling, that you're going to see other ways of getting it on the screen without just being over the shoulder or behind, like we did with the Social Network, over the shoulder of a green screen that we then later lay in whatever's on the screen.
So why the switch from iMessage in season 1 to Android in season 2?
I really don't know. I mean, I guess that's just, I'm now on Samsung. I've dumped my iPhone. I think, look, I'll just give my opinion. I think the Apple iPhone is antiquated and Android is where it's going. But I don't think it has anything to do with that. Everyone thought in season 1 we were sponsored by Apple, which we weren't, because we got so much flack for having Apple products all over the place. And my response was that, walk into your office right now and tell me how much Apple shit you see laying around. And it's basically kept it real. I mean, we could have stuck the sticker on, like you see in all these shows, which I think is idiotic, that they put the sticker on to block out the Apple. That's not real. I mean, I can probably look across the room here and see some backs of Apple laptops. It's just, that's part of life.
So my last question before we open it up. So do you think 5 years from now, television is dead?
I think it's dead the way we know it now. Digital distribution is where it's at. The next new networks, that's where it's really going to be fun. What Netflix is doing, what Amazon is doing, as far as content, Hulu even now, of where we're getting content. I think networks that people haven't even thought about of distributing content and being like Netflix, like Facebook, can easily just start creating content, and they have a huge audience that they can immediately start putting out to. Same with Twitter and all the others. That's where it's all going to happen. And you see these wars with Comcast and others that it's just going to be noise in a few years from now, because that's just going to be how you get your content. It's the same as, talk about the iPhone. If you look at the first iPhone, was it 2007 when it came out? So really wasn't that long ago. But any phone now that doesn't have a touchscreen on it is absurd. And I think that when we get to 5 years from now, if it's not available on your device or you can't stream it and get it wherever you want it, it's going to be absurd.
All right, well, with that, I'd love to open it up to the audience.
No questions, great.
Are there microphones running around, I think? Okay, great.
I was wondering what your opinion was on the kind of diminishing water cooler conversation element that now can't really happen with shows where all the episodes are available at once. Like, for instance, when you approach a group of people and want to talk about House of Cards, everybody's got to be on spoiler
they're like, no,
alert.
don't talk.
Yeah, like, don't tell me. It's hard to, like, keep track of who's on what episode. And I was wondering if you think that is something that would hurt or help a series like House of Cards in the future of other shows.
That was a big question when we first decided to do all episodes in one go, and what we realized is, if your friends are spoiling it for you, they're just assholes, and you should get new friends. But it's like reading a book. If you've read a great book and then you tell me, oh, you got to check it out, or I'm reading the same book, you don't then go and tell me what happens at the end of that book or after that chapter. And it gives people the ability to, read whatever chapters that they want to read. But everyone, they credit us for binge viewing and, the whole spoiler aspect. It's been around for years, since DVD box sets started, or the DVR. I haven't watched, what the hell's the new show that everyone's going on about with Matthew McConaughey and True Detective. I haven't watched that yet, but it's not spoiled for me, because it's all backed up on my DVR. I'm going to catch up on HBO Go. Same thing with Game of Thrones and all these other shows that I watch. So it's why we get singled out, like you can't have water cooler talk about our show. It's really any show. Because if you go and whatever show comes out, this weekend that you're a fan of, you don't go and then start talking about it and tell people, the plot points until you check to see if they've watched it.
Hi, my question's related to what he was just talking about. Have you guys looked at building technology that allows people to know what episode they're on, so it removes some of that spoiler issue?
Like a digital display that goes on your forehead?
Can I build it for you? It changed my life.
That's a great idea.
There's a lot of creative minds in here. Somebody can come up with it. And maybe just write it on a whiteboard on your shirt that shows
You just
what.
have, like, everyone should
I'm
have,
on
like,
episode 3 of House of
LED.
Cards, episode 2 of True Detective.
Walk around with an LED name tag that's just like episode 3.
Maybe something
Don't
Google
talk to me.
Glass. That could be a good Google Glass thing. That.
You could build this with Twitter, though. So have you talked to them about potentially doing episode Twitter feeds?
There's actually there was somebody developed. It's like some kid that developed a spoiler prevention thing for Twitter that would edit out any spoilers. That's not my business. I'm in content creation, so I think it's a great idea, but I'm not going to build it.
You should build it.
Call me.
Hey, so ironically enough, I'm here as an executive producer.
How much did you pay?
So far, about $7,200 on a film we shot on a smartphone in its entirety. And we have a quality product, but we don't have any star power. So I'm curious if you have any ideas on how, I guess, features without stars will get more views or actually generate some income.
You don't have to have a star to make a movie. You just have to tell a good story. There's a lot of movies that have tremendous stars in them. They're absolute crap. So I think if you use what we're talking about, use your social networks and use the platforms that are out there to get it out there. Maybe I know it helps to have a star to bring attention to it, but you don't have to have a star to make a good film. Go to Sundance and see the films that are selling there. The majority of them don't have big stars in them.
I have a screener in my pocket if you want to see it.
I would also say
tweet me the Vimeo link.
We did it about 5 minutes ago.
All right, well,
nice. Very smart. There's
there you go.
Thank you.
I think there's also a great opportunity there to join. You can really create a community of like-minded filmmakers and content creators online where you all help support and share each other's projects too.
Well, Austin is a huge town for that. I mean,
Exactly.
It's known for that.
Hey, my question was whether you see commercial opportunity in other types of content formats. So typically you have high budget, longer formats, or people who do self-creation but are typically in shorter formats. Are you looking at other formats where it's high production value, a lot of budget attached to it, but shorter or even longer formats?
The closest that I do to anything like that, we do a thing called Jameson First Shot, where we take a filmmaker from Russia, South Africa, United States every year, and then we pair them with a big star First year was Kevin Spacey, last year was Willem Dafoe, this year it's going to be Uma Thurman. And then we produced their short film and then put it online. And it's to bring exposure and attention to those filmmakers. That's as close that I get to anything like that. I think there's a lot of places where that's really going to start to take off. I'm just more focused on television and features though, but it doesn't mean that I would never explore it down the line.
Hi. Earlier today, Mindy Kaling was talking about how the differences in TV programming versus network programming versus cable programming affects the stories that can be told. Mm-hmm. And as a result, when a Showtime show gets pitted against a Fox show in award seasons, they're not really comparable because they're different structures. And I'm thinking how, from the consumer perspective, we just care about entertainment. So do you think that disparity is going to be reconciled in the future between critical acclaim and popular acclaim?
Well, I think they're different types of material. If to use House of Cards as an example, we shot that like a 13-chapter movie, where a show on Fox that's a sitcom or whatever it is, they're usually tied up so you can sit and watch it, and it has a beginning, middle, and end, and it is all self-contained. Mm-hmm. Where cable shows, you're usually done as chapters, so it's not all tied up at the end, and a lot of things pick up in third or fourth episodes that were from the first that didn't finish up there. Where a lot of network shows, that's just typically they try to be contained.
Thank you.
Using some of your delightful bluntness, can you tell us some of the challenges that you had working with the great Kevin Spacey?
Challenges? Like what type of challenges?
Like I said, I'm sure there's all kinds, working with such a magnificent actor as Spacey, and who's also particularly bright. I'm sure he's got lots of opinions. He likes things done in a certain way. I'm sure you've got wonderful stories inside your head about all the years you've worked for Spacey.
They're also business partners, I should clarify. So I just want to step in here for Dana. And
hey, look, if I had any good, stories of him being an asshole, I'd love to tell you. But he is, as any actor, he can be difficult. But as any person, I can be difficult. I'm probably more difficult than he is when I'm on set. But he's a consummate professional, and he didn't get to where he is by being difficult. So sorry. I mean, I've worked with him for 15 years. I wish I had some horrendous story. I mean, maybe there was one night we got drunk somewhere and he threw a bottle or something. I don't know. Sorry, I don't.
He returned a coffee you got him when you were an
yeah,
assistant
I got him the
coffee
wrong
getter.
coffee when he poured hot coffee on me.
So we're talking about how to increase the audience and what are the new methods of distribution, or are we going to watch your show on our wristwatch? And
it's a good idea.
My question is, how concerned are you about the business model wherein states, and I represent the Florida Film Office, so I'm not trying to poach this show, let me just say, but we're all experiencing challenges trying to get enough tax credits to entice you all to come to our states, and I know you're having a challenge right now with your third season, and it doesn't seem like a lot of serious brain time is being given to the fact that 20 to 30% of some of these shows that we love, their budget is coming from a very potentially questionable source in the future. What do you think about that?
What do you mean by questionable source?
Well, I mean, there's a host of states that are reevaluating the importance and the future of their tax credit programs.
Well, look, I wish I live in LA, and the majority of my productions shoot outside of LA, right. And it's because the state's tax credits, and it's basically what they're doing is to trying to incentivize us to come and shoot there because we create jobs and we bring money into the economy. It always turns into a political game, though. Liberal Hollywood and then conservative Republicans of whether or not they're giving us money, they're giving us millions of dollars. When in reality, what it is, it's they're giving us credits. I mean, you know how this works.
Right, sure.
And it basically encourages business to come there, just the same as they give to any other business to come to their state. So there's a reason that I shot 50 Shades in Vancouver. There's a reason I shot a movie in Albuquerque. There's a reason that we shoot in Baltimore, House of Cards. I wish my own state, California, would give us some type of incentive to stay there, because I'd like to sleep in my own bed at night, as opposed to going and traveling everywhere if the location doesn't require it. I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but did I answer it?
My question is the fact that, oh, I'm sorry. My question is that for the majority of the things that we see on TV, 20 to 30% of those budgets comes from tax credits. And there used to be 48 states with tax credit programs, and then there was 42, and then there was 38, and now there's whatever the number.
They knock it down.
How big a concern is that to you?
It's not a concern. I mean, it's nice to be able to get that, to get the ability to go and shoot someplace that's going to help the production. But my only concern is about getting a production up and getting it financed. I don't rely on the state's tax credits, and it's just what it's called. It's an incentive. And if the incentive incentivizes me to go there, then I will.
I think we have time for one more question, so thank you.
Luckily, that's my question.
Okay, great. Have a good night.
All right. So we've been talking a little bit about the fact that content producers, we're all now content producers with social media like YouTube, Facebook, and so forth. There's sort of the prosumer content creation of YouTube. There's sort of the professional content creation of Hollywood. It seems to me that there's sort of a third area in between that brands have tried to occupy. Brands like Lexus, Red Bull have created their own content plays. But that's largely not a monetized space, and it's largely short form. And I'm wondering if you could comment a little bit on the growth, or if you think there will be growth in that area.
Yeah, I definitely think there will be more growth in that area, but I think it's mainly focused more at advertisers, whether it's curating great content and packaging it around whatever their brand is, or having crowdsourcing audiences like they do to basically pimp their brand for them by using some creative ways. But yeah, I mean that area it's in its infancy.
On piggybacking on that question a little, how important do you think it is for producers kind of in the traditional Hollywood to be really familiar with what is going on in Silicon Valley and elsewhere and what's going on in tech? Do you think that's important?
I think, yeah, I mean, it depends on where they sit in the business, but for me, I think it's extremely important just to understand where digital media is going, and from everything from the content distribution to the capture and creation of, there's still some DPs that won't shoot on anything but film. They refuse. There's some that will still only cut on Avid and won't go to Final Cut. And there's a lot of dinosaurs in our business. And technology is a great thing and really gives us the advantage to, I mean, look, the one guy is shooting his film on a smartphone, and everybody here can make a film of this if they want it and cut it up and then upload it before they get home, and it's on YouTube. Just to be able to know that there's abilities to do that is important, because it's another method to tell a story.
Where can people reach you online to follow your adventures?
On Twitter at Dana Brunetti, or on Facebook, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Good. I also want to give a quick shout out. I'm actually in a room with two of my idols, because I want to give a quick shout out to Kristen Chenoweth, who's sitting in the front row.
Oh, not me? I thought it was me.
As someone who has dreamed my whole life of singing on Broadway and is finally making my Broadway debut this Friday, it's really thrilling to sit and hear you. And Dana, just as someone who's really been,
was me.
And content, I know, and my other mentor, just sitting, making content, even from what we started to do with Facebook Live and some of the other things, just the opportunity to sit with you, who's really just changing the complete face of content, is thrilling for me. So
thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you.
Thanks, guys.